Okay, so today we're going to be going over unpivoting a input data table in Google Sheets. So here we have the table, and it's fairly basic. So essentially how this is broken up is we have the dates here, and we'll do that in a nice blue. Then we have, oops, let me actually do that because that's a day. Then we have essentially the first table here, which is essentially going to be fake Google data. So we have the channel as Google, we have cost, clicks, and conversions. It's randomly generated data using equals rand, like that. And then here we have the Facebook table, and we'll just put a random orange. So we have three tables, essentially, all in this sheet, and this is the input table. And so this is a common practice sometimes for business leaders when they use sheets essentially as an input sheet. They're going to have essentially their date column, which, is basically, if we hide these are basically helper columns. So if we hide these like this, we have our date column, could hide this. And then we have our input data. So every single day, the business leader wants to input their costs, clicks, and conversions from yesterday, potentially for their Facebook and Google ads. So they'll do it here. And it's split in this way with the metrics cascaded across, all the columns, because it's a little bit easier for humans to kind of interact with and read versus if it was all unpivoted, where you would have basically, I would say like metric name, metric, and then you'd have to manually type in the metric and then select the number for it. It's just a little bit less user-friendly. And so that's why commonly, we'll see this when we work with kind of a, it could be a lot of stuff. It could be like sales data, marketing data, or really anything. How do I unhide columns? There we go. Okay, and so here we have the data table, and essentially what we're trying to accomplish is to take the input table and unpivot it, because as we can see, technically this is essentially a pivot table where we have the metrics, again, cascaded along the columns instead of one metric column. And so let me think about this for a sec. So how we're going to do this is we're going to have a bunch of different functions, and I'm going to go over them. So essentially the first thing that we need to do is just get a new sheet. And what we're going to do here is essentially we need to bring in some key columns. So we're going to bring in the date column, we're going to bring in the channel column, and then we're also going to bring in the metrics. And then we're also, or I guess, we're going to bring in the date column, channel column. We're going to bring in the metric names, and then we're going to also bring in the metric amounts. And so let's just start to construct this essentially. So curly braces for arrays. We're going to be using the let function, which essentially turns Google Sheets and Excel into actual coding language where you can create variables and use them later in that function. So the first one we're going to do is essentially getting the row number. So we're going to call this row num max. So we want to get the last row number of our data table so that we can have this array iterate over every single row. And I don't remember exactly why it's required, honestly, off the top of my head, but basically, I think it has to do with when we are concatenating or when we are unioning like a bunch of different arrays together, we have to manually tell it to stop, if that makes sense. And this is essentially how I got it to work. And then we'll do this. Can we do lock it? It's not liking that. Okay, gonna definitely lock that, exclam. That's why I need exclam. Okay, so we're gonna get, let's just actually first look at this. Let's just isolate this really quick. We'll leave this here and we'll just grab this, the row. Okay, so if we do row, then we just get one. Move that over here. click in here, highlight all, Control X, move it over here just to move it. So we're getting the row. If we move it down, I think maybe it'll count to 2, but maybe not. Okay, so it doesn't. And that's fine because we're not really too concerned with that. Okay, I was just checking my microphone levels, but we want the max. We want the max row, and that doesn't do anything for us because we're not getting an array. So let's do array formula. Let's say it was an array, for example. Now it's getting 1,000. So why is it getting 1,000? And the reason for that is because if you go all the way down, we have 1,000 rows. So if I add in more, like, I don't know, I'll just add in 10 because I don't want to add in cells because it makes things slower. So as we can see, the max row is now 1,010. And so that's the issue. So what we need to do essentially is filter. Instead of get the entire array, we need to filter the row count where input table case sensitive. Did I spell it wrong? Input table case sensitive, whatever, money C. Okay, that's fine, is not blank. So we're using the filter to filter where the primary key column, the date column, is not blank. We're getting the number of that. And so if we go back, we can see that there's row number 835 is the last row. And so that is the last row that we're going to be collecting this data from. And this is column C that we're going off of, actually, which is the date column. And again, these are just helper functions that were previously used. Okay, and so again, this is going to be, this is going to be used as our row number. So we're just going to put that here now. Going to do let row num, comma, split that, and then another comma at the end for the next function. And then what we're going to do next is we're actually going to get, so we have the row number, which is going to be used a lot throughout this function. And then what we're also going to be using a lot throughout this function is essentially the date column. And so just to make the code kind of smaller, I parameterize the date. And so we're using the indirect function for this. C, money C, and row num. So we need to get the date column from, row 1 all the way down to its max row number. And that's how we're essentially going to union all of these arrays on top of each other. And so that's why we're using the indirect function here, so that we can call this column reference by name, by string name. And it just makes it a lot easier to parameterize it because we're going to be repeating it so much throughout this. And maybe we can just post, if we do this, we can put that there. But if we do this, maybe we can see, we can see what that looks like potentially. I need a comma. Is that going to print it out? Okay, so cool. So it's getting, I think, probably the max. If we go here, it's getting the max. Cool. So we can see that that's working. And that's cool. And I think maybe if we put this into an array formula, maybe it'll do the whole thing. We'll see. I'm not sure, to be completely honest. Okay, it doesn't do it, but that's fine. It's not really the purpose. That's just kind of essentially showing what's going on. So what we need to do next is basically create a subarray within this array. And what we're going to do within this subarray is basically take all 4 of our columns that we're looking to get, which we can name here. So the first one we're going to be getting is the date column. Then we're going to be getting the channel, which is kind of like the descriptor, the category. Then we're going to be getting the metric name, which we can call that. And then the last one we're going to be getting is the amount. And so again, we're going to be creating a subarray here. And I like to actually put this curly brace here. And then this one we can put here. Okay, and I'm just going to extend this out so we can actually see what we're working with. Cool. Cool. So how this is going to work is basically what we're going to do is for every single column that we're trying to grab, we are going to write, you know, vertical, horizontally concatenated arrays, and then we're going to concat those in a union fashion on top of the additionally, horizontally concatenated arrays. So the first thing we're going to do is do array if, and then we're going to get the date column. It's not blank. And so again, this is a way for us to filter because we can't, that's the reason why I remember now. So when I initially tested this out using the filter function, I can't remember exactly why, but it just wasn't really working. And so we had to use the ARRAYIF function, which essentially can be utilized in a similar fashion to the filter function where we're removing the blanks. But the issue was that, what's it called? The issue was for date column, max row. I think there was something with, what is the max row? It was kind of difficult to grab. So I had to parameterize that or variabilize that into the row number. And then the date column just made it easier to work with. Yeah. And so we have date column. We're going to grab that. Cool. And so if we just grab the date column, we can go here, actually remove that and just post the date column. And for some reason, it's not doing the entire date column. Am I missing something? Did I incorrectly? And row num, max filter row. Okay, maybe it extends out when I have the other columns. So the date column is there. We're going to do array if date column is not blank. Then not date column, whoops. We're going to do the input table, and we're going to grab, if I go back, we're going to grab the channel name here. So we're going to grab column E. So we're going to do money E. And we're going to grab the second row of that because that's where the actual, we go back, that's where, the actual record is. We go back here, and then we're going to just close that. And that, I don't know what's going on there. Now we need to do the naming convention for, what's this, the channel. Okay, and now that's good. So we have that. Not quite sure why it's not doing the array, but let me think about that. False? Not quite sure. Let me get the first one going, though, because I feel like we might answer the question along the way. So, oops. Essentially the same logic. We're just doing the exact same number of rows. I think the filter didn't work because I'm repeating, as we can see in this next instance, I'm repeating the, what's it called? We go here, I'm repeating the metric name, the number of times of the max row number. And so that's why filter didn't really work, because it needed that equal sized array, but ARRAYIF worked. And then I needed to grab the, we're going to do money at, I needed to grab the, max row number as well to use it here. And so we're going to do that. Put a comma there to concat horizontally. And then we're going to do the naming convention, which is going to be a metric, and post that. And so we have false. Again, I'm not exactly sure why it's doing that, but let me just put in the last one and see if we can fix that. If not, I'm just going to copy paste. Okay, so this one is going to be the amount. So we're going to get indirect input table, money F2 to money F and row num. If not blank. And then we're going to post that. Formula parse error, naming convention, and right amount. Formula. There was some typo that I did up here. Ah, I see what it is. So I didn't do this initially. So let me do that now. So I didn't start on the date column in the records. So my bad with that. And then we're going to repost this to cool. That looks good. Put the comma and rename. And then the fun part starts. So I'm going to take a little intermission. Now that we have the first table, we're going to pull this up. We're going to view one row. Okay. And so now we have step one done. So we got the first part of the formula completed. So again, we're essentially concatenating these horizontally with the comma, and then what we're going to do here is concatenate it vertically in a unionized fashion with the semicolon here within this subarray here. Control, yeah, in this subarray here, we do maybe something like that. You can see it. And so all of the tables are going to be unionized under each other for every single metric. So now we just have cost. We go down, we have cost for every single date with the Google channel. And if we go back to the input table, we see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when working with this massive kind of function, what I found is that funny enough, Google Sheets, compute power, it's always doing dynamic JavaScript, I believe. So what I ended up doing is I just edited this in Notepad as well as Visual Studio Code. Let's see. Can I extend this maybe? Let me fix this. Okay. Kind of do this. Okay, that should be good. Yeah, so I ended up just using VS Code to do this because it was just way easier to work with. It doesn't have syntax highlighting and all that stuff until I think the second array or the third array. The second array. So now it looks, more beautiful and all that. So what we have to do for each group of arrays, though, is we have to essentially change. So it just depends. So we have 3 for each table. So what we're going to have to do is, this is our channel. So for each channel, we're going to leave that the same. And then each metric we need to change here. And then each metric amount we need to change here. So for each array instance, we essentially have to update the column reference like this. And then we can move that out and do it one more time for G, and then H is next. And that's that. And so then we're going to take this, copy paste this. Let me see. Okay. And copy paste this here. And then it should give us an error message, of course, because I have an additional semicolon here that I can remove, and that's good to go. So now we're going to scroll down the whole thing just so you can see in a demo fashion, like 3,000 rows or so, 1,500 rows or 2,500 rows for all that. So that's good to go. Now, this is really, really useful for unpivoting a table. However, doing it can be highly tedious, especially if you go to like column reference DD kind of thing like that. It takes quite some time. I tried to, make it go faster with AI, but unfortunately, it was not really doing it correctly for the most part. So I ended up just doing it manually, and A, B. And so, you just got to do what you got to do. And so This next one, we're going to be getting Facebook. So that has to do with this reference here. If we go back to Sheets, we can see that Google was channel E and I is channel Facebook. So we're going to go back to the code here. We're going to go I for that channel. Then we're going to do, I don't know my alphabet, JKL. Okay, we're going to do JKL. So instead of H, we're going to do J, 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 and then I'm actually just going to copy this so that I don't have to redo the channel reference again. So JK, K, and then L, K, L, and then we'll have our pivoted or unpivoted table. And I need to remove that too, but I'll leave that for now. Okay, put this here, and then we remove the semicolon, hit enter, and now we can just go down the whole thing for demo purposes. We can see everything is there. We have Google costs, Google clicks, Google conversions, Facebook costs, Facebook clicks, and Facebook conversions. And wait for it. And there we go. And we have it across the entire date range all in one table. And then you can take this table and you can essentially feed it into Looker Studio. You can bring it somewhere else. It's now in kind of more of a normalized database fashion. It's not like a pivoted fashion. So you can plug this into a SQL database as well. And you got it from this kind of input table. And again, you know, I've worked with things that have like 100 different columns on them that are unpivoted, that have to be, that are in a pivot table that need to be unpivoted into a normalized table. So it goes from 100 columns to about, you know, 4 or 5 or 6 columns, and then it's like 100,000 rows. So it's a pretty handy technique. And I will just show it one last time. And there you go. Hope this works out.